Now, I said in my last video that this little table was given to my wife when she started school. It's cool, but it's too small. I've been working from here for a couple of years. This is where I spend 8 to 10 hours every Saturday editing my videos, and it gets to be a bit of a backache. So come with me while I make this desk sized for an adult. This whole table build is really just a byproduct of making a cabinet to go with my wife's office desk. This is a job I've been overdue to deliver for about a year, but I'm getting close now. When we bought this house, the previous owners had wood panelled the ceiling, and not in a good way. Over time, moist air had got up behind this wood panelling and caused a lot of mould. It was pretty gross, so I took it all off. But the wood was kind of nice, and I always knew I'd make something out of it. I made Mrs. Rotary S&P a nice office desk by laminating a whole bunch of these strips of wood together. That was about 10 years ago. Now I'm about halfway through making that side cabinet to match it, and I found there was some extra wood left over, so the first thing that needs to be done is to cut off the tongue and groove. Well, I cut off the tongues. I figured it'd be easier just to deal with the grooves later. Man, that was a dumb decision. I've laminated it up. This is going to be my new office desk. Instead of that little mini one, this one's going to be 83, nearly 3 feet by 160, which must be a bit over 5 feet. I've already planed the other side. This is probably going to be the bottom, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'll at least even it up. How would you do this? Would you hand plane the grooves down, must be nearly 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch? Or would you set something up with the router and just route backwards and forwards and do sort of router planing? Well, that was not exactly an elegant use of the router, but it certainly sped up this job by a significant amount. You know, I did consider cutting off those grooves before I laminated it all up. Probably should have. Now, we all like channels from guys like Clickspring, who does absolutely everything to perfection. I'm not really like that. Like, this is the underside of a table. It's never going to be seen. I'm going to take it further than this, but some of these divots are quite deep. It doesn't need to be perfect. No one's ever going to see it again. I'm the sort of person who goes good, practical, and calls it finished, rather than trying to make everything perfect. Well, I think that's good enough for the back. Let's get it flipped and cut the ends to length. It's bloody heavy. Supposedly putting tape down reduces the amount of chip out. Not sure if it does, but it doesn't hurt. Well, I can't quite get the 160 centimeters I was aiming for, so I'll just cut it to the maximum length I can get. On this project, I've decided to try one of those super glossy finishes using glass clear epoxy. But first I'll put a little shellac on to give it a nice warm tone. Where I laminated these 82 thin boards together, there are lots of little gaps and cracks in between. So the first thing it needs is a seal coat of epoxy, maybe even two. Before I do that, I'll flip it back over and prepare the back. I've watched a few videos of epoxying a table and they all say just put some packing tape around the bottom when the epoxy drips around from the top, that it's easy to remove. Just to control the mess, I'll make a bit of a drip catcher. Next up, leveling. Needs to come up this end a bit. Okay, given the curvature, that's probably as good as I'm going to get it. So, next, epoxy. I've seen different opinions about how much epoxy you need to make up. For this initial sealing coat, I'll make up 300 millimeters to start with, see how that looks. So that's now hardened for 24 hours, so let's take a look at it. That first seal coat is not terribly even, but it doesn't need to be. I watched another video. I thought I'd only need one seal coat, but the video I watched would suggest you need two, maybe even three if you want a good job. Between each layer of epoxy, you have to scuff it up to make it kind of scratch the surface so that it bonds nicely. I just used, I think, 60 or 80 grit sandpaper. Not ideal using the orbital sander. It kind of gummed up towards the end and made a bit of a mess. It's better to do it by hand. It stops the paper gumming up so badly. I ended up doing 2 full sealing coats and a few touch-ups before moving on to the final flood coat. Mrs. Rotary's taken the scales back. Maybe she's baked something. Oh wow, what are we getting here? Some people say these bits are a tribute to Alan Millyard, but it's not really. It's a tribute to Tracy Millyard. I watched quite a few videos on doing these flood coats. In the Imperial system, I think it says you want 3 fluid ounces per square foot. Well, in metric it's easy. 1 square meter, 1 millimeter, 1 litre. This is about 1.3 square meters. 1 millimeter should be enough, I guess. So I'll mix a bit extra just to make sure. Just to make mixing easy, I'll do 1.45. 1 of resin, 0.45 of hardener. So 450 milliliters. This is going to be a lot. I can see now this is going to make a huge mess. Oh, I don't even have 450 milliliters, but 420. So I'll reduce this down to just under a litre as well. That's fine. It's going to be fun mixing this. Slightly overfilled, I guess. I didn't really think through the density, did I? This is a 2 litre container and I only need 1.5 litres of epoxy. The resin's much more dense than the hardener. It sank to the bottom. Using the toothed trowel with the 3mm teeth seems to be the key to spreading out the epoxy and getting a nice self-leveling, even layer. Speaking of epoxy, did you see that there's some sort of a conflict between Qatar Airways and Airbus about composite damage, like damage into the composite structure of the A350? While it's sometimes referred to as paint damage in the media, that exposed copper mesh, which you can see, should actually be buried in the epoxy because it's the outermost layer of the composite skin and it forms the lightning protection. An aluminium aircraft obviously doesn't need this because the aluminium itself makes a good Faraday's cage to protect the airframe. Epoxy and Kevlar are insulators, and although carbon fiber would conduct, sending the current of a lightning strike through those multiple layers would probably cause terrible delamination. Right, I'll let that settle for about half an hour and then I'll come back and go over it again with the flame. Oh wow, that looks fantastic. Yum. Well, about 36 hours have elapsed since I did this and it's looking pretty good. There are a few little minor defects, like maybe we can just see the one here, but all in all, pretty darn happy for a first attempt. Yeah, a bit of a divot there. There's this weird defect which is like a bunch of bubbles. I mean, this kept coming up. I popped them easily 4 or 5 times with the heat, but they kept coming back. Oh well, that shows it's man-made. I'm glad I put some packing tape on first. I guess this can wait until I turn it over, but it's now been 3 or 4 days since I did the epoxy, so it's gone nice and hard. Now I need to get these drips off. You know, thinking about it, all of the videos I saw on making a table like this, they all said put down some tape to pick up the drips, but no one actually tells you, at least how do you finish the bottom. How would you do it? This tape's not coming off that well, so I probably just take it off as best as I can. And then take off the remains of whatever sticks to it with the wood plane, and then another couple of layers of shellac on the bottom. Couple more layers of shellac and we'll call this finished and be ready to install it. Oh good, my desk legs have arrived. This purchase was made possible by my generous patrons. Thanks very much. Definitely made out of quite solid steel. I'm guessing it's probably 1.5mm wall thickness. These crossbars here are probably 2 or 2.5. It's definitely got a bit of heft to it. So there's the instruction manual. So to check everything's there. Got the supporting beam. 2 of them. Bracket. So what do we got here? The hardware. Yes, I counted all those through, they're all there. And the control module by the looks of it. Yep. Handset. This is a heavy one. Okay, that looks like the feet or the pedestals as they call them. Good, everything's there. So let's get all the stuff out of the way and let's make space for the new table. Look at what I've been using as a shelf. It's a very retro Bang & Olufsen A350, dates from the early 1970s. It was already in this house. I kind of had visions of maybe putting in like a Bluetooth receiver, but realistically I just connect everything up to the computer. So I'll sell this. It's time for it to go. Oh cool, I got visited by our #1 fan Nico, who's here to help me move up my new desk. Hey Nico, what do you think of this system of like taping the insulation to the wall?
It's a shame. It's crap. It's a shame for humankind. There is just no possible way you can put less effort in doing something.
Okay, we have
Do you have legs?
numbers. Yep, up,
Oh wow!
down.
I want one of those.
Okay,
Good.
cool. Well, thanks a lot for your help carrying that up. That was brilliant. And assembling. And especially cable management. You do good cable management.
Someone is getting jealous there. No. And show the special trick.
Way.
I'll let you look, yeah? I want the same! No.
I have already bought the materials to make proper acoustic panels, but I'm not sure if I'll do a video on that. What do you guys think? Are you interested in a quick video on making up acoustic dampening panels, proper ones? If so, leave a comment in the comments section. Well, I was away for a couple of days on a business trip, so these have fallen off. And the good news is, my monitors arrived. Cool. This Dell 27-inch 4K monitor had pretty good reviews, so I figured I'd give it a go. I like how the packaging of these things is cardboard these days. It's a lot easier to get rid of than polystyrene. This all looks pretty easy to put together. Editing on a 27-inch 4K monitor is just a dream compared to a 14-inch laptop screen. This is great. So there we have it. This desk and the monitor were paid for by Patreons and donations, and I really appreciate your assistance. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time.